There we go. Cool song. Let's start. There we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Full Course Yellow. I'm blaming daylight. I'm blaming daylight saving and the still recovering from the celebrations of the weekend where it's a total coincidence that Pete and I are the only. It's not that we've sort of excluded the rest of the people because they barrack for loser clubs. Not at all. No, it's just I think daylight saving is throwing things out. But Mark Jones is with us. Unfortunately, at the moment, the voice of Queensland Motorsport is. We can't hear the voice of Queensland Motorsport at the moment because he's having some mic problems. But he's going to try and get back into the to the conversation a little bit later. And I'm not sure about Doc, or I know Chris is going to try and join us as well, and Richard. So we'll just see what happens. Dave might be up at heading up to Bathurst if he's not up there, probably up there already. So Pete and I, at the moment, you've got the two of us giving you the preview for Bathurst. We've also got the box saying time to worship the mountain after last weekend's good there, and Merry Bogan Christmas. Yes, it's apparently Bogan Christmas for the 4 sleeps to go. We're ready to celebrate. So we will have some news about Bathurst coming up in just a moment, but it's pretty much, Pete. It's all about parody, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
do we want to talk too much about parody? Because I don't know about you, but I'm sick to bloody death of parody right now.
I am too. I think what needs to happen is they just need to say, okay, there is a problem. Let's just see out this year, and we'll make a strong undertaking that over the off season we will work on it and get parity for next season. And there's been other years where one manufacturer has dominated um, over another, so it's not like there hasn't been a precedent.
Yeah, I think that's right. The problem is I can see the problem. There's supposed to be a meeting today. I mean, it was said, and I think we mentioned it last night in the news for this week, that there was going to be a meeting of everybody today. That meeting was cancelled, and as I said before before we went to air, the way that was cancelled and the sort of the very limited information that came out, because it wasn't said why it was cancelled. It just said it's been cancelled. I'm thinking that there was, the threat of some lawyers getting involved. There. Let's before we go any further, let's see if we've got our technical problems right. We are now through the miracle of Elon Musk's personal satellite. We are going live to and back in time by an hour to the beautiful state of Queensland, and saying hello to Mark Jones. And I think I can hear something. Mark, are you there? Are you there?
Yes, Mike Raymond.
Yes.
It's 1989 here right now, and we're all set for the latest Group A edition of the Bathurst 1000. Sorry,
Yeah,
no.
Beware of the year 2000 bug. It'll get you. It's a killer. Planes fell out of the sky and everything. It was really scary.
It is much better to be heard. I mean, I just had to go back to my 15-year-old headset, and it worked.
Sometimes the old favourites, the old reliables, sometimes much better than all the newfangled technology. I mean, that's all you can afford in my case. I mean, that's what I keep telling myself anyway. I don't want any of this newfangled stuff. Yes, I do. No. I just can't afford it.
Mind you, I don't suggest turning up to the mountain on tomorrow with a VP Commodore. It might not be accepted into the entry.
No, I just think so. Well, I said yes. It would be interesting to Interesting. It was funny today. I went out. I was saying to Pete, I went out to lunch today, and they had at the licensed adult entertainment venue that I was at. They had the adult entertainment was the Bathurst channel, and I sat there and having a meal and watching some old Bathurst on that channel, and I don't know. It just seemed to be a whole lot more special back there. It might be through the mist of nostalgia and all the rest of it, but it was lovely to see some of the old races and some of the drivers from the past, and it just seemed to have more of a resonance because the cars were a lot closer to what we could actually drive on the road, or from the Group C days and all that. That was yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sorry.
Group C was, of course, a category of hot rods. They were they may have been based on road cars, but there was a lot. There was quite some generous modifications on those cars, and by the end of Group C, they were they were a complete fantasy race car a complete fantasy road car by the end of Group C, and that's why people threw up their hands at homologation by negotiation. So
as distinct from now, where we have the miracle of parity, and that's sort of as we were just saying while you were away, Mark. It's like we're sort of sick to death of parity already, but it is the big topic, and but it's looking likely now that it's too late for. You would think it would be too late for any major changes.
Oh no, I think there is no. What I'm hearing is there is absolute parity between the race teams who want a parity adjustment and the race teams who don't want a parity adjustment.
And that's only fair. Yes, it's and as I was saying, I think that the way that meeting was cancelled, the meeting they had planned for today, it wouldn't surprise me if the legal teams got involved, because I imagine that, quite rightly to an extent, the General Motors teams are turning around and looking at this and saying, look, the trigger. The parity trigger is there's a procedure set in place for this to happen. The latest parity trigger simply hasn't happened yet, and to sort of make changes like this all of a sudden is probably asking a bit much. Somebody who might know, we have joining us from God knows where is Dave Stillwell, joining us in audio only from the electronic ether. David, where are you?
Good evening, everyone. I'm out to dinner with some lovely volunteer motorsport officials who will be part of the on-track medical service for the Bathurst 1000 this weekend. So
thank you so much for your services.
Out to dinner at a lovely Indian restaurant on the main strip at Bathurst.
And it would be lovely. The one thing I say about Bathurst is, it's very hard. I've personally found it very hard to find bad food at Bathurst. The food at Bathurst is usually really, really good.
Hello?
It must be. It must be because there he is.
Here we go. That's why we lost contact.
That's why we lost contact. Hello, everybody.
Yes, we're out having a lovely time.
This is good. Sort of carb loading for tomorrow.
Definitely, it's a full 4 days of action for the Repco Bathurst 1000. Huge field of cars across all the support categories and across 28 cars in the main race. Of course, we can't go racing without a huge volunteer group of Motorsport Australia officials. So a huge shout out to all of them that are doing it tough, particularly those in the campground who might be slightly underwater this weekend.
Yeah, the forecast is for it to improve. They're sort of saying that Saturday and Sunday it should be, but there's obvious. I mean, it poured here yesterday. I mean, absolutely teamed down all day, and it seems to have gone up north. So I certainly wouldn't be like to be camping there in that sort of conditions.
You also wouldn't have liked driving up the highway in Getsy in this afternoon's thunderstorms.
I have done that once before, yes, and it was pretty scary.
It's not something that I can recommend to anyone with any degree of confidence. It's certainly not pleasant at the best of times. It's the kind of thing that they red flag Formula One races for.
Yeah, well, the last time I went there and got had those conditions, we couldn't see 2 feet, and we pulled off to the side of and then when the rain eventually did slow down enough to see where we were, we found that we were that far from the side of of about a 150-foot drop. So as you say, it's a challenging trip up there sometimes at the best of times. So we'll see how we go. But while Dave is sort of connecting, might be having some problems with his connection there.
Oh no, he just shut down the video feed. That's all.
That's it.
Dave's just sparing you the packing away of the very empty dishes at the Indian restaurant. So,
and what did we have? What did we have tonight? What was the plat du jour for this evening?
We had 2 different varieties of naan. We had 2 lamb dishes, 2 chicken dishes, and the special, which was mustard garlic rice. Rice cooked in mustard seeds, fresh garlic, and a squeeze of lemon with butter and coriander. Highly recommended.
Sounds very, very nice indeed. So what time did you get up? Have you got overwhelmed by parity talk so far?
I have managed to avoid any of the discussion, the robust discussions which no doubt were underway in the paddock today. Unfortunately, that's not something I'll be focusing on this weekend. I'll just be focused on myself and my team and making sure that we look after the drivers, the crews, and all the officials with our on-track medical service this weekend.
Yeah, I think that's it. Unfortunately, it's sort of the main story, and it shouldn't be the main story. Hopefully, once everybody gets on the track tomorrow, we can forget about it. I hope they make a decision fairly soon. The decision probably will be that there won't be any major changes, but if there are, we'll never hear the end of it. But hopefully, they'll put this off, and we can just get on with racing, and what happens, and we should still get a good race.
Supercars is discovering that there is truth in the old adage. You can please all the people some of the time, some of the people all the time, but you can't please all the people all the time. So,
the other thing that there seems to be a number of rule books that you can refer to that you can reinterpret. You seem to be able to reinterpret. I forget what they call it, the owner's rule book, and the FIA rule book, and some other rule book, which they're all referring to, which they seem to be able to reopen to interpretation.
Well, the thing is, any rule book tends to be written with plenty of input from lawyers, and lawyers like to have things open to interpretation because that's why lawyers are employed. So I would imagine that they would. I imagine there's lots of people now poring over various conditions of competition to see where there are loopholes that they might be able to jump through. But it doesn't seem that there's too many. It just seems at the moment the rule is that there is a parity trigger. The parity trigger at this stage hasn't been met, and as a result, for better or worse, the Fords don't get the performance improvements that they want.
I would observe that if there were any journalists looking for, shall we say, a straightforward but robust answer to their questions regarding the situation, one of the Tickford team owners happens to be a very successful legal practitioner who himself is also an accomplished grassroots and amateur racer.
In Porsches, I believe.
Who would definitely be going into bat for himself and his fellow Ford team owners, and possibly some of his clients as well. So, on that note, gentlemen, I will leave you to what I'm sure will be a delightful evening of yellow flag chat, and I'll catch you on the show next week for hopefully a debrief on the Brepco Bathurst 1000.
We shall. Enjoy yourself, everybody. Keep everyone safe up there, and thanks to everybody, as you say, up there. And because, as we always say, without the volunteer marshals, there is no motorsport. And as I've said many times, some of the people who actually do the driving should not forget that. And unfortunately, a lot of them do. Okay, well well, it sounds like they're having a very pleasant time in terms of the meal up there. Sounds very nice indeed. But okay, so let's talk about what's going to happen this weekend. I mean, do we think even with the parity thing, we are talking about Bathurst, we are talking about 1,000 kilometres of racing. Despite all of the problems that Ford have had in being, consistent, surely you couldn't totally rule out a win for a Ford. In fact, I'll give you a preview of tomorrow night. I threw out there because everybody said yes, it'll be Brock Feeney or it'll be Brady Kostecki and all that. But I've just thrown it out there because I've got a funny feeling deep down inside. My tip is actually a Mustang will win, and I'm thinking that Mustang's going to be Chaz Mostert. So there's my tip. What do we reckon, guys?
I'm thinking Garth Tander and David Reynolds, because if you look at Sandown, they were Chaz Mostert and Garth Tander were the top forwards, and it was really only an accident that put them out. It wasn't, so I'm thinking Garth Tander and David Reynolds.
Yeah, well, once again, as we said, I think last week, it's those experienced drivers do count for a lot at Mount Panorama, and the top teams have got them. I mean, obviously, you've got Jamie Whincup involved, and you've got Richie Stanaway, and a whole bunch of those sort of people who do have lots of experience. So, yeah, let's have a look what happens. Mark, what do you think? Who's your tip for the weekend?
I firmly believe that the winner will be a Chevrolet sponsored by a fizzy drink.
Yes, well, that's gives you plenty of
wiggle room.
Plenty of wriggle room there. Although it could be a Ford sponsored by a fizzy drink, because there's one of those, a couple of those.
There is one of those, yes.
Yeah, one of them, yeah.
And that one's certainly in the running to be the best of the Fords, if they can keep the rear wing on the car.
Yeah, well, it's the rear wing and the rear tyres, I think, that they're worried about. I mean, that's certainly the feedback, is that's been the problem, is the cars are not that sort of separate, not that separated on pure performance, certainly in qualifying. Oh, yeah. But it's basically once the race starts, the tyres, the rear tyres on the Mustang seem to be going off a lot quicker than the Commodores, and the Ford teams are saying that's because the balance of the car is not what we would like it to be. But until we start seeing people going to mine, we probably won't get a good indication of what's going to happen until the weather settles down as well. So I wouldn't expect, because of the forecast for tomorrow is still more showers.
Yeah.
And that promises to mask any particular issues.
That takes away. I would imagine that like if they don't get their parity, I imagine a lot of the Ford teams wouldn't be too upset if we got a wet race. But as I said, I just looked at the forecast, and it does say cloudy but fine, with I think it's about a 20% chance of showers. But as the week goes on, the showers, the percentage of shower gets less and less. Obviously, as Dave was just saying, there's been plenty of rain up there today, and it would be a nightmare up there in the with camping. That is the one thing about camping at the mountain, is if it rains and it's windy, it's far from pleasant.
Yes, well, yeah, we've all had wet weather experience at racetracks, and it doesn't tend to vary all that much. That once you get a certain level of rain, any racetrack is inhospitable. But even Gold Coast with all of its distractions can be quite unpleasant. When one of those afternoon thunderstorm rolls across the circuit, as can happen.
We had them so often during the IndyCar days. I think I think almost every year I went up there. In fact, they changed the time of the race at one stage to try and get it, because it was always the pattern. Always was, you'd get to the track in the morning and think, oh, look at this, the perfect day, isn't it? Look at the beautiful sunshine and the waves and we're in paradise. And then basically just when the IndyCar race started, the clouds would roll in, and the next thing, down it would come, and boy, oh boy, sometimes when it rains, as you well know, when it rains up there, it rains.
Oh yeah, and I was in the media facility, which is immediately behind the pit garages at the old IndyCar pit setup on the Gold Coast, where on the day when we had the thick rain for pretty much all afternoon, and we had the race finisher, and we had where we had the pile up on the grid, and then we had the race result decided on when you took your pit stop. So we knew the result of the race was going to be like some 15, 20, oh, well, not 15 laps, but certainly around 8 laps or so before the end of the race, because they trundled around behind the safety car until the trip was reached to say yes, it's a completed race.
My memory of one of those of one of those races with the rain was the wonderful spectacle of watching the late Carl Huss coming through one of the tunnels that take you back out onto the Gold Coast under the track, and it was the water was about sort of 2 feet deep, and he was in a golf cart, and the golf cart got through halfway and didn't proceed anymore, and a whole bunch of very keen, very drunk local fans got behind the thing and pushed and very, very generously pushed Carl out of the of his predicament, because the cigar never left his mouth. The cigar, Carl was soaked. The golf cart was trashed, but the cigar survived. So that was the main thing.
Was it still lit?
No, well, he told them he didn't like them because they're for the safety thing and all that. But he just always constantly had it in his mouth, and he was just I imagine that when he got out of the track, that was one of the first things he did. But he just had the damn thing. It was like a trademark almost. It was just he always had the cigar, and of course, on this occasion he did. He got to halfway through, and I was out the other side. Melissa and I were out the other side, basically looking to get across to there was a hotel, and Mark, you probably know, just across there was a large, quite upmarket hotel across the way, and we were just trying to get there, and in fact we got in there early, and we sort of we walked through the door, and we opened the door, and then opened the door, and came through, held the door open while Kathy Freeman and a whole bunch of VIPs walked in, because they'd given up as well, and we all ended up at the bar at this. They're having cocktails until it was safe to go outside again.
Of course, Carl Haas's famous superstition about not travelling across water, which meant he had to take an unusual method of getting into the circuit to get past the Nerang River into the racetrack.
Well, that's why. Well, he was certainly going over water. He had no choice to get, because there was water every bloody where. So,
well, yeah.
He had no choice. He had no choice.
Bodies of water rather than impromptu lakes.
Yes. So we've got that. We've got Mad Cow Mark. Yes. Yeah, daylight saving. Yeah, I'm the same. Daylight savings, an earlier day. At times, it's a conspiracy, Mark. It's a. Yeah, so much the IndyCar nearly ran out of fuel. Well, that happened just recently.
That's true.
That happened.
One year at Bathurst, I think they cooked the safety car.
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Like it physically broke down. And
Yes.
I think that's happened more than once, because I think, if memory serves, in 1987, when they had it the first time, that they cooked a car and had to
The
put.
world touring car. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the official Nissans decided it didn't want to work as advertised anymore.
Well, that's probably a reason why companies are a bit wary about providing the safety car, because it's a great meme nowadays for the safety car to be to be towed back on the back of a trailer or something. Got there. So go, Roy. How are you? It was good to catch up with you. And also, as SB, yes, Christmas week for race fans. So yeah, I think the feeling is everybody's we're all looking forward to Bathurst, and I think just the Gen 3 is going to add something, as it did to Sandown. There is that sense of uncertainty, and also I think the first thing that I'm waiting for is going to be interesting as to how watching those cars come through the chase for the first time, because they've lost an awful lot of downforce, and they're still going to be in fact, they're saying they'll be faster in a straight line because of the lack of downforce. They'll be faster in a straight line. So it might be interesting, watching people go through that chase for the first few seconds to see how fast they can. Because they used to take that sort of kink pretty much flat, and I imagine they'll try doing that again.
Yeah.
So yeah, it could be some fun and games there. That could be the place to be.
Yes.
The place to be for tomorrow morning.
Well, if it's wet, it might become Friday morning when we find out if they can take it flat or not.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, it really does depend on the weather at all. So that'll be good. Also, we've got the other interesting thing is we've got, for the first time for many years, the national sports sedans are up there,
Wow.
and yeah, I mean, sort of, it'll be interesting to see, because we haven't seen the top cars there racing for many years. So we've got Ricciardello's back there in the Alpha, but you've also got Jordan Caruso in the Audi, and they were out at Calder on Friday, sort of testing out a Bathurst setup, and I know they're very keen to do well there. And I'm assuming, I haven't seen, I didn't. I'm assuming from the entry list that Steve Tomasi is up there, and that Calibra will be I know that'll be very fast in a straight line, because
Very slippery.
they've always had very good engines. They've got a drag racing background, and their engines are always very strong. So I think in a straight line, it'll be interesting to see what the top speed of those cars, because Keith Carling still has the record going there. Although it might have been, the Daytona might have pipped it for the 12-hour before they had wound back the dial a little bit on it, because it frightened the living daylights out of some of the internationals who were flying down Conrod Strait, and suddenly this this bizarre 1966 design sports car was blasting past them in a straight line, as if they were standing still.
It's I've just brought the sports sedan entry list up on my screen here, and I can confirm that Tomasi and the Calibra. I mean, they do have a 300ZX option in that team, but no,
Yes.
the Calibra is down on the entry list, as well as, of course, Caruso, Ricciardello. Angus Fogg is going to be there with his Ford Mustang. That's
a car that'll be quick in a straight line. That's a very powerful car, that one. It's not as sophisticated as some of the other cars, but it has a very powerful engine, so that'll be quick.
Yeah, the Smiths with their Mazda RX-7s. Beryl Seaton's Camaro. There's some Michael Robinson and Ash Jarvis in the two V2 style Monaros.
Yeah, so there's a few up there. It's a really good turnout. once again. And then, of course, they've got their last round will be on the streets of the Gold Coast. So they're going back to back to Bathurst and back to the Gold Coast. And because they're going back to the Gold Coast, it means that the sports sedans, the Victorian sports sedans, are not going to be racing at Calder Park in the return to Calder Park. In fact, there's quite a few categories that have decided not to take up that option. We had tomorrow night on the show, we've got the new Victorian Formula Ford champion in Joe Fawcett, and he's been confirmed now because there was some thought that there might be another round added at the end, but the Formula Ford guy said no, we're not going there. They are going to have. It's interesting. They've decided to because they've got so many spots open on the card. They've basically added a combined sedans category for the weekend, and the first two entries are two GT4 Mercedes. So it could be interesting to see. We get a few sports sedans, perhaps a couple of GT3 cars, and that could turn into an interesting little side attraction for the Victorian Championship, the fifth round now and the return to Calder Park after many years.
If I just pop back onto Bathurst Sports Sedans just for a quick second, there's one interesting addition to the entry list there in Ronan Murphy in a Mark car.
Yes, that's I'm assuming that's the Mustang.
No, it's a Mark 1 Ford Focus.
Oh, it's a Ford Focus. Okay, because Mark have now done like an official sports sedan version. It's a Mustang because they were running under sort of invitation thing, and they've modified a couple of them, and whether it's the Focus or the Tony Groves car, the Mazda down here, they were running as sports sedans, but Mark decided, Ryan McLeod and the team decided to build a dedicated sports sedan version that actually does fit the sports sedan regulations. And it's as you could imagine, it's a really nice looking car. And I'm not sure whether that's there or not. I forget who had that, but I think it raced at. I think it did debut at the New South Wales State Series, one of the last rounds. And it looked really good, really lovely car. Yes, so Paul is with us again. G'day, Naggers, how are you? The late Ivan Stibbard driving the Mazda along Conrod Straight when the lights, yeah. They hit the hatchback grass, smashing it at a reasonable speed. Yes. So we've seen a few incidents over here. We've had a few sort of cars crashing into safety cars and all the rest of it. Mark is saying, and remember being at Bathurst with pubs full of people watching the grand final on Saturday. There were a couple of grand finals.
That was when it was on New South Wales Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, so and I think there was because of display. Yes, we know you, Mark. You're in late, Paul. This is the second microphone. This one, at least we can hear him on this one. We might hear him breathing, but it's probably better than not hearing him at all, which was the case with the new microphone. We've also got virtual, which was the same weekend. Now, I think that the problem with that weekend and that situation was for Channel 7 is they really had to say, well, which one are we doing on Saturday afternoon? And the obvious one was was the grand final, because until the Matildas happened earlier this year, it was always the number one rating event pretty much for the year anyway. So they were never going to pick Bathurst over a VFL or an AFL Grand Final.
And also, I'm led to believe that Tony Cochrane didn't want it competing with the NRL.
Well, the NRL did move their grand final to the Labor Day weekend in order to capitalise on having a Sunday night grand final ahead of the public holiday Monday. That change was made after the Sydney Olympics happened, and where everybody surrendered September and October to the Olympics and stood back and say and then when the calendars were resorted afterwards, the NRL decided to move full time to the week after the AFL final, and at that time, because of various politicking, the Bathurst wasn't on that weekend anyway. So we kind of in motorsport fraternity kind of gave the weekend away in certain respects.
Yeah, I think it's see the thing is that well, I imagine it would probably have some effect on the crowd that turned up if it was the same weekend as the NRL Grand Final. But because it is a night Grand Final and it is on a Sunday night, I don't think it would have any great effect. In fact, it'd be an absolute bonanza for people who like their rugby league as well. I mean, you could sit there and you could watch Bathurst all day, have a quick break for tea, and then sort of sit down and open up another slab and watch the grand final. So
well, the other side of that is unlike the AFL, the rugby league has a series of games on grand final day, not just the one game at the end of it.
Yeah, that's it. Which I actually like. That's one thing I miss about grand final because you used to have that the VFL grand final. You'd have the under-19s, then the reserves, and then the main event. And it was a full day of football, which, as you say, they still do to an extent with the rugby league, and you get those other, and they also had the women's competition.
It's just the jersey flag now, I believe.
What was that?
Just the jersey flag, I believe now for the underage, because the old reserve grade comp got deconnected. That's not the right word for it.
Yeah, well, it's a bit like here. The reserve grades turned into the VFL, and then the VFL got filled with all of these teams from Queensland and New South Wales and all over. And it's very confusing now. I think we mentioned the other. You'll see Williamstown versus Brisbane, or Williamstown versus Southport, Port Melbourne versus Parramatta or something. It's very confusing. Yeah, I think that's. Yeah, John reminds. This is a long time ago, but back here in Melbourne, I mean, the tradition that was World of Sport on Channel 7, yes, they would, and then that wasn't going to go anywhere. And they used to literally, they would break Bathurst in the middle of have World of Sport, and then go back to Bathurst for the end of the race. But nothing was going to take away World of Sport because one, it was a Melbourne institution, and number two, the man who used to run Channel 7 in Melbourne, the late Ron Casey, was the host of World of Sport, and he was very well known for, even though Channel 7 had a lot of motor racing, even apart from Bathurst, they had all the stuff from Calder. They had Calder Rallycross, they had the Calder circuit racing. So they had quite a bit of motorsport on in the year, but he was famously someone who didn't think much of sport, and his head of sport, Alf Brown, hated. He openly said that he didn't want it on the sport thing. He put it down. He basically he said that it was the same as cockfighting and professional wrestling. He said it's not a sport. It shouldn't be on, and it shouldn't be a part of the sporting telecast. So so he wasn't a fan.
Well, we have audiences to instruct people on what is and isn't a sport. So
the old Christopher Scar. I think Christopher actually liked car racing. I think but I didn't know Christopher. It's funny. Christopher Skase's father was a very talented singer, a very popular singer back in the 50s, a sort of a semi-opera singer guy. And when he retired, he ended up being the centre manager of the Dandenong the Hanover Arcade Shopping Centre in Dandenong, and when I was running the vacant lot, which was the Dandenong Youth Theatre project, we were talking to them about getting there, and it was Charles Skates that we were negotiating with at the time. And he was a lovely guy, yeah, I don't think the son took after him, but anyway, okay, they dropped. Played with the Associated VFA team, yeah, yeah. So yeah, anyway, that's the football stuff. Okay, so let's go. We've obviously got a few audio issues tonight. Unfortunately, we've got a few, a few strange sounds and echoes and all that. So we might pull that.
My apologies.
That's okay. Let's talk about quickly Formula One. That's Daniel Ricciardo not coming back now until at least the US Grand Prix. So Liam Lawson gets another opportunity to shine, and gee, I tell you what, I don't know how Red Bull are going to be able to keep him. If they've got to find something for him, because really, I mean, every other team would be. You imagine most of the other teams would be just hovering and saying, "Look, we'll snap this guy up."
I don't know why, but Christian Horner appears adamant that he's not going to loan him out to Williams if Logan Sargent does get the
Heave ho.
Yeah, and you'd assume like they're already talking. Williams are talking. They're basically saying that that Sargent has the next 6 races to basically prove that he deserves to stay in Formula One, and if he can't, I mean they'll look elsewhere, and you'd have to think Liam Lawson would be first cab off the rank. I mean, because he's
and second and third,
and then there's other people who probably do. I mean, we've all forgotten about Nick. Talking about New Zealand, we've all forgotten about Nick Cassidy, who's a very, very talented driver who doesn't get probably the credit he deserves either, and under other circumstances could well have been in Formula One, and possibly should.
Well, of course, when there's we haven't really had. There's been this with the relative lack of with just 20 seats in Formula One to fill. There hasn't been as great a promotion relegation amongst drivers, and we haven't had too many. Like there's been a little, like Liam Lawson kind of represents that there's been a logjam of top drivers coming through Formula 2 and Formula 3 and being unable to progress anywhere but sideways into Formula E or even World Endurance in a couple of respects.
Well, that's one thing we've got. We've got the story on tomorrow night's show, as well as some footage of the Alpine testing at. Over in Europe, and it's increasing talk that both Jack Doohan and Mick Schumacher will end up together in the second Alpine for the World Endurance Championship next year, and one part of the reason why is certainly for Alpine's purpose is they really don't have anywhere else at the moment for Jack to go, and. Yeah, so they're certainly talking, and they also like the image of the big picture of having 2 legendary names. As I said, I think it's like 12 world championships between the family names of Schumacher and Doohan. So they'd be so it sounds good, and apparently they're very good friends as well. So that certainly helps. So that's.
Mick and Michael Senior, of course, were quite friendly back in the day.
Yes, they were
Michael
friends.
Michael used to stay at his house when he came to Australia.
Yeah, so young Mick and Mick Schumacher and Jack have obviously more or less grown up growing up together, they'd have spent a lot of time together as kids growing up, so they would be good for. So it would be a good fit. At the other end of the age scale, it's looking increasingly likely that at least for Le Mans, if not for other races, Jota Porsche may have the team of Sebastian Vettel and Jenson Button joining them as well. Jensen's already said he wants to. He definitely wants to do a full season of WEC, and Sebastian has said that he would like to. He's always said that he wanted one day to do Le Mans, and this would be the ideal opportunity, you would think. So, so we could have Vettel and Button part of the team next year. And the other bit of WEC news, incidentally, was the great experiment is over. Peugeot have announced that they're going to rehomologate their current car for 2024 and
The
going to have
9XE?
a wing.
Yeah. I guess that was somewhat inevitable. I mean, it was an idea to be explored to see if the possibility was there, but we've kind of seen that this year that the Peugeot has only really been competitive in either in wet conditions or in the high speed stuff where they're able to exploit better the lack of drag inducing.
It was a car that was basically designed, one to sort of, to make a point in terms of technology, but two, it was very much designed to win Le Mans and to do well at Le Mans. That was the thing. I don't think the big picture of the World Endurance Championship worried the French the French manufacturer as much as winning the chance to win the 100th anniversary of the Le Mans 24-hour race. But then they did pretty well at times. They led briefly and. They weren't embarrassing, but I think the problem with the wing was the lack of flexibility they had in terms of adjusting the thing and the problems they had, particularly at rough circuits. That anywhere they had where it was a bit bumpy or something like that, the ground effects could be a bit dodgy. So I think they're going back. So that's a shame. It was a different looking car, and that's what we were.
No, I'm pretty sure it'll still be a different looking car.
Well, you would have,
Peugeot.
you would hope so, and of course we've got the Lamborghini, but BMW tested the same test. Porsche have made some homologating some new parts, so they were testing with BMW as well. And as we said, we've got footage tomorrow night of the Alpine. Lovely sound. Listen to the end. Lovely sound for that too. Jeremy's saying Lawson for Perez in 2025.
It's likely.
You'd have
likely,
to
but you'd need to work out a way of hanging on to Lawson because Lawson's not going to twiddle his thumbs for.
Well, if they virtually guaranteed him, if they said they put it in writing and they put it into a contract and saying 2025.
Yeah.
You're the man. You are the guy. You just got to, basically just take 2024. Just come and be our reserve. Continue to be our reserve driver. Do lots and lots of simulator work, and just come to all the rounds with us and get keep in with the whole circus. And then sort of, 2025, unless they can move Perez beforehand, and that's going to be the thing because some people are saying, there's been rumours around from people who know him, saying that he's not particularly happy playing second fiddle to Max, and that at some stage he might do a Dan Ricciardo and say, no, but that's it, I'm out of here, I can do better elsewhere, or I'm thanks for the money and thanks for the time, but I'll move away. In which case, you'd have to think that Lawson would be the first cab off the rank, and what an interesting thing that would be for next year.
I think it takes a special person to be the number 2 driver against someone like Hamilton or Verstappen or Senna back in the day. Or Prost or what have you, someone who's willing to be someone who was good enough to be in the top team in F1. And
well, it's a specialised role, isn't it? I mean, you had Rubens
kind of
Barrichello
is.
was very good at it. Eddie Irvine. There was a few people who, over the years.
Felipe Massa.
Well,
Felipe Massa.
Irvine got sick of it, and
eventually,
and took the big dollar offer from Ford at the time to move to Jaguar, which was a spectacular unsuccess for both of them. And then Gerhard Berger kind of fell into that role a bit once he discovered that he probably wasn't going to be world champion with either Ferrari or wherever.
I think the problem for Sergio at the moment is that, like on those occasions, like the role of that second driver is basically that, when something happens to your first driver, is that you're next cab off the rank, and that you're going to, if your number one driver isn't going to win, then your number two driver needs to win. And there's been some occasions when Max has had a problem here or there where Sergio, there's been some that he has won, but there's been a few that he was expected to win and he's made mistakes or he's just been off the pace. And I think that they've been disappointed with his consistency.
Yeah, well, I guess that's part of why it's a special role that someone who's willing to be somebody's number two and yet be good enough to be a team leader at any other team on the grid.
Yeah, I think that's a problem. We've also got that was announced. Andretti Cadillac progressing to the next stage of Formula One. The FIA have announced Andretti as being their preferred sort of candidate for a Formula One license. All that basically means is if the Formula One management agrees to let them in, then the FIA have got no problems. Then they'll say yes, here's all the official paperwork and everything you need, and so the door is open now. But the teams are still very much opposed to having another team, most of the teams anyway. I think there's a couple of them that have said no, we're happy to have another team in, but at least they've got to that next stage. And the interesting thing is with Cadillac's involvement is that Cadillac, when talking about the World Endurance Championship, they were saying they're not going to expand their World Endurance Championship campaign to 2 cars, and they said one of the reasons for doing that was they had to look at their long-term motorsport commitments and what other avenues might open up in the future that would affect the World Endurance Championship campaign. So they might be just looking at, if they do get involved, they might do an Audi and say, okay, we'll pull out of WEC now and just concentrate our branding and everything on Formula One. But I'd like to see it. It'd be great to see a new team in, and American backing and General Motors backing. General Motors, who famously always said we will never get involved in motorsport, are now very, very heavily involved in motorsport.
Well, it took quite a few people to age out of the company to get to that stage. I suggest, but yeah, that's.
Because that was the whole thing for the Holden dealer team. It's because the locals wanted to be involved, and Detroit just kept saying no, we're not officially involved in motorsport. So Harry first basically did a backdoor deal where they went there and said okay, it's not a Holden team, it's the Holden dealers team.
Yeah.
And they obviously got away with that for years. So it was a factory team in everything but name only, and the people they were trying to fool was basically the Detroit management by saying that okay, we're not racing, but our dealers want to be a part of this, and we can't stand in their way.
Yeah. And and plus there was additional pressure from Vauxhall and from Opel wanting to go racing as well.
Well, Vauxhall did the same thing. There was basically using that template. There was later on there was a Vauxhall dealer team in there, which famously Jerry Marshall and the Big Bertha, they had the Repco power, which we actually got to see, and we did a story on down at Phillip Island a few years ago. That was brought over here, very famous the super saloon as they called them over there, basically a sports sedan that we'd have over here, and that was running at Phillip Island a few years ago. It was great to see that car. We did a story on it, and as you say, then Opel got involved, and eventually, sort of, there were back doors opening everywhere. There was involvement in NASCAR and sports car racing and all sorts of things. So yeah, the no motorsport edict wasn't worth the paper it was written on.
No, by the time we got to the 1980s, it was, yeah.
Okay, well, I think that's about time. Let's go quickly. I've already said that for my for my tip on the outside, which is a Ford Mustang to win, and Chaz Mostert, Basin and Fabian Coulthard to be the ones doing the driving. Pete, your tip for Bathurst?
I think it's Garth Tander and David Reynolds. I was watching the Bathurst channel just before we came on, and there was the 2015, I think it was, Bathurst, or the first time that Jamie Whincup had a battle with the fuel gauge, and David Reynolds was right behind him, and Jamie ended up winning the race, but David Reynolds was right behind him, so he's got good form at Bathurst.
Yeah, Davey's always been brilliant there, and I mean, like he's had his greatest moment, of course, was at Bathurst in 2019. I'm having a memory fail. It was before that, actually, wasn't it?
He's also had some tough ones too, of course, with his cramping and all, and that's been a problem. Which he says he still had a problem with the cramping. He said that particularly, but the good thing is it's not going to be hot. I mean, we've just come off of 2 days, both in Sydney and Melbourne, where it was I think on the Sunday before the NRL Grand Final, the temperature out at Stadium Australia was something like 37 degrees. So you would imagine that they'd be very happy that I think the forecast for this weekend is at Bathurst is about a top of about 19. But anyway, so that's it. Mark, what's your tip?
Oh, my tip is I'm very much looking forward to the undercard as much as the main game, like Carrera Cup, Toyota 86 Championship finale for them as well. That's going to be amazing, I'm sure. The Super 2 and Super 3 is Super 3 grid's on the small side, of course, but Super 2 is always great to watch at Bathurst, and Carrera Cup's always fantastic.
Yeah,
and
our
plus
recent
sports sedans
back, and
and
the
of course
the
Super Utes.
Super Utes with Tom Oliphant, the British touring car driver and TCR driver. He's making his Bathurst debut at in the Super Utes. Talk about chocolates to boil lollies. He's so jumping in because, of course, the TCR cars will be there later in the year for the Bathurst International and the World Tour, and he basically thought this was a great opportunity to get up there and get a few laps at Bathurst. So he's behind the wheel of a ute. In the Toyotas, we've got the Tasmanian Campbell Logan, who's the 26-point lead over Ryan Casher. So a couple of young guys there. So the north versus south. We've got the Tasmania versus Queensland in that duel, and the Carrera Cup, as you say, always puts on a good race up there. They look fabulous. I mean, it's like the GT3s. It's just the Carreras, the Porsches look fabulous running around Bathurst. And as we said before, the sports sedans really looking forward to them getting out there, and hopefully we'll see plenty of them on the Foxtel coverage, because they're at various strange times. But hopefully they don't. Hopefully they do the right thing and
I think
actually televise.
I think they are, because I think the coverage is going to start at something like 7 in the morning most days. In fact, all days. Yeah.
Yeah. So So
Got
anyway,
me
so that's
flicking through the races 2 and 3 for sports sedans is 10 o'clock on Friday and Saturday. So
that should, yeah, they should be. Certainly the Saturday one, you'd assume that they would be televising. But yeah, I mean, because sometimes, I mean, if they haven't done a commercial deal, when there have been occasions where they've,
Oh,
where they,
yeah.
you know, you'll hear them running around in the background, and it's like, hang on, the sports sedans or something is running now, and instead we've got, like here's what the supercar wives wore to the gala dinner last night or something.
and normally, and it seemed regularly that it would be Aussie racing cars would be screaming their shrill sound in the background.
Yeah, that was the other thing. Yes, John. Big Bertha did have a Holden V8 originally. It had had the Repco Holden Formula 5000 motor, but when it came out here, like a lot of those cars, it had switched over at that point to the Chev motor, which is like same with a lot of the historic sports sedans that are running around now that originally had Repco engines. They're very hard to get hold of, and a lot of them, and some of the 5000s. Gavin Saylor's Matic A50 is now running a Chev rather than the Repco Holden because
Just
they're
can't
a bit
get
hard to get hold of. Okay, Bath. Oh, yes, that's probably worth. If you want to get away from the commentary, from the television commentary for the weekend, the Bathurst radio coverage is on SCN. I listened to that coming home from Phillip Island of the Sandown 500 call. Aaron Noonan and I think Matt Nolte might have been involved. I forget who it was, but I know Noons was involved. It was very good coverage, really good coverage. So if you want to sort of do the cricket thing and turn the sound on the telly down, you've got an option on SEN, at least in I imagine in Melbourne, Sydney, and Queensland, that they'll be giving up the day over to the coverage. Lot of ads, unfortunately. That's the only thing. Okay, everybody, we'll see you. Tomorrow night, 9 o'clock on Impit Lane as our special guest Joe Force. Our band tomorrow night, Renalofus. Very, very, very interesting. Very different band indeed. So Jeremy saying, surprise, surprise. Jeremy saying a Kiwi podium lockout, but then he said it's probably fairly safe. There's so many Kiwis running that there's and they're all up at the pointy end. So we'll see. So
Van Giz and Heimgartner and
and Matt Payne, and they've got a whole bunch of. Then there's more
with Kevin Estray. Kevin
well,
Estray is rear gunner. They're a real dark horse.
That's a real in terms of experience and pedigree. That's a pretty impressive lineup. Okay, everybody. Well, we'll see you, as I said, be watching tomorrow night in Pit Lane, 9 o'clock on Channel 31 Melbourne if you're down here. If not, at some stage I will get the extended version up on the YouTube channel, and we will see you. Hopefully, we'll have a big wrap up, as Dave Stillwell said earlier. We'll have a wrap up just to everybody at Bathurst. I mean, it's a great track, but it can bite pretty hard. So let's hope for a safe weekend for everybody there, whether it's drivers, crew, officials, and spectators. Let's hope that everything goes well and that we can celebrate a good weekend of racing next week on the program. Okay, everybody, we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us. Catch you later, everyone.